thought we will start going over the intent for tonight and the plan. So we're going to start by talking about HotelierCo itself, why it was founded, the reason that we started the company. Then we will move on and talk a little bit about equity crowdfunding. It seems to be something that a lot of people don't have a complete understanding of yet, so we're hoping to help illuminate you on that. We'll then talk a little bit about the Cape May project that is currently qualified with the SEC, and then talk about some of the ownership benefits that we're excited about in this form of crowdfunding. And we will end with some questions or a Q&A. So just to let people know, I know some of you have already submitted questions. Just to try to make this go a little smoother, we will hold off until the end for that. Also, because there'll be a fair few people jumping on the webinar, we have actually muted all of the other lines. So unfortunately, mine is the only voice that you will hear. So feel free as we're going along to put up questions, and at the end we will answer anything that has already come through, as well as any questions that you may have along the way. So with that, we'll get started. So what is the purpose of HotelierCo? So my background is actually in the hotel fund management space. So when I started doing this in Australia and ran a fund with some Four Seasons hotels in it, Intercontinental and some luxury product, something that I was always excited about was to one day be able to own a piece of that myself. And at the time, there was no conduit to do so. So in 2015, in June, Regulation A+ crowdfunding came into effect. So what that did is it took crowdfunding, which had previously been for things such as Kickstarter, where it was almost like a pre-sale where you would jump on and order goods in advance and try to make someone's company viable, and had flipped that around to be you could actually invest in the equity of the company. And so what we're focused on is the property market, and in particular hotels, and bringing hotel investments to a much larger audience than just institutional money. So when we began this journey, we're also very fortunate to partner with Valor Hospitality, who are a hotel management company and one of the better hotel management companies that I've dealt with, if not the best. And they thought that this was also a great opportunity to get involved and help grow the platform in the United States. So with that, HotelierCo was formed, and we are looking to kind of crowdfund hotels. So to try to explain how equity crowdfunding works, I thought that I would start with something that people are a little more familiar with, and that would be a residential property. So if we take a residential property as an example, so let's pretend you were looking at buying a home for $100,000 as an investment property, and you get 70% debt on it, but you didn't have the full $30,000 remaining to buy the rest of the house. So you decide to approach your brother or sister-in-law or cousin, and oh, am I not sharing my screen? Here we go. Sorry, guys. Oh, it looks like, is it the screen's not sharing? So I'll hopefully everyone can see my screen. If someone can put in the question and answers, if you're having any issues with it, I will try to fix it. So if you take that example of buying a home and you don't have the full $30,000 in equity, and you decide to do it with a family member, you would each own 50% of the equity, and you would then share in whatever the profits were. So thank you, Edgar. So it sounds like the screen is working. So you would share in the profits, and I think this is kind of an example that people can get their head around. So there's 1,500 in profit, and each person would get $750. So if you take this concept and apply it to a hotel, we are in effect doing the exact same thing. However, the scale is just larger. So for instance, if you had a $10 million hotel and you could find $6 million of debt, you could actually break the remaining part of that hotel up into $410,000 pieces. And this is in effect what Regulation A+ is allowing us to do. And what that does is it allows people to invest as many funds as they feel comfortable investing into a particular project. And so the way that we look at doing this is where otherwise that $4 million of the hotel would have been institutional or very high net worth individuals owning it, instead it is broken up and available to a much larger audience. So now taking that, I just wanted to kind of explain that first project that we have now had qualified. And if anyone had been following it along, originally it was qualified to do a development of the Ewing Hotel, 23-room operation, and then look to expand and grow that by acquiring surrounding land. We were actually fortunate enough to get almost the entire street under contract over the last 6 months. So we have re-qualified the projects now, and we're actually reversing the order. So we are now acquiring all the parcels of land and then looking to develop a brand new hotel that has already been approved for development. So Cape May itself is a resort beachside kind of town, and very big on tourism. So in 2018, tourism hit $6.6 billion, and the lodging industry alone accounted for $2.6 billion of that. And so one of the drivers of Cape May is actually, it's a lodging market that's predominantly visited by people from Manhattan, DC, and Philadelphia. So a little bit about the project now that we have got a large number of these parcels under contract. You can see here it's a tax map, and I have photos of the actual properties that we're acquiring. So the positive of this is, as at 29th of November this year, we need $4.75 million to close on all of the land, with the exception of Albert Stevens Inn. And now that we actually can acquire the land first, it actually allows us to have 46 rooms in operation from December this year, and then look to do the new building over the next 18 months, ready for the season in 2021. So the project itself has gotten a lot more exciting. So we're pretty happy about this larger expansion. And it also means that we now, from a master planning point of view, can take out all the fences and do a great job with the landscaping and look to bring some of these mansions back to their former glory and to the Victorian nature and charm that they used to have. So who is the team on Cape May? I mentioned earlier that we partnered with Valor Hospitality. They're actually a hotel management group based in the US, but with large operations across the UK, South Africa, and have just opened offices in Dubai and Hong Kong. And their background is in the boutique space. So Ewan, who founded the company, he actually was involved in the development, the Cape Race Hotel in Cape Town, and actually took that independent hotel to being ranked #1 in the world. So he has a great heritage for understanding what boutique hospitality is and making sure that the guest experience is top class. In terms of HotelierCo, so that's my background in funds management, and HotelierCo is a fund management company, and we're excited that instead of just dealing with straight institutions, that we instead look after retail investor funds across the United States and hopefully globally in the next 2 to 3 years. The group that is actually doing the architecture and interior design for this project, because it is so key to the area, the entire area is historic listed. We have a group called Hotel Studio, and their focus is particularly on conversions or rehab of historic buildings. So their pedigree for this is fantastic, and so the team for this project is very strong, and we have pre-qualified a couple of builders that are interested in doing the actual work. So what do we see in terms of providing ownership benefits for crowdfunding? So one of the exciting things about crowdfunding, which a lot of people have suggested is similar to timeshare, but it is not, I can guarantee you that. But what we like is that you're effectively buying into an investment product that would only otherwise be available to institutional money. But the benefit that you get is you actually can, if you choose to, use this as an asset for yourself. So what we're excited about for this is we can pass discounts directly to owners. And, originally you may think, well, if I'm getting a 20% discount, does that impact the bottom line? But what will happen is sites such as Expedia or online travel agents can take upwards of 20 to 23% of the revenue generated for a property. So having the ability to have members or investors book directly with the hotel actually allows the bottom line, which is your hotel, to perform better. So you have a better margin and lower the marketing costs, because who doesn't want to own part of an exciting beachside resort hotel and tell all their family and friends that where else would you want to stay apart from my hotel? So we think there's a lot of benefits to that, and we're excited to see the flow-through effect on that as we progress and build out more hotels. So I tried to keep that nice and short and sweet for you. So now to answer some questions, I'll start with the few that we actually received leading up to the webinar. So a lot of people had asked about what the minimum investment is. For the Cape May project, we have actually set the minimum at $2,500. With future raises, we do intend for that amount to be lower. But at this stage, the open investment will be $2,500 minimum. And the maximum, if you are an unaccredited investor, is the higher of 10% of your net worth or 10% of your income. Another question is about return on investment or internal rate of return. So this one is actually one of the frustrations I guess I have in terms of what we can disclose. So we have actually some pretty sophisticated financial models. However, because this is a retail offering, one of the roles of the SEC is to ensure that retail investors are protected and understand the risks involved with investing in hotels. As part of that, they don't actually allow us to give forward-looking statements or projections of future cash flows, even though we do have them. So what we are actually allowed to talk about is facts. And so the facts for this particular project in Cape May is we don't actually take any return on or no income return on our investment until investors get a 7.5% income return. And then we actually get the same income return as investors until we hit 10%. And that is when we are incentivized to get over 10%. In terms of the capital of the project, we are incentivized to get a return for you greater than 130%. So, reading into that, typically developments will not take place unless we think we can far exceed the hurdles that we've set for ourselves. But in terms of what you can be comfortable with is until we actually get 7.5% income return, we will not actually, or the voting shares that HotelierCo owns will not get paid anything. Jen, are there any additional questions? Okay.
You mentioned discounting, but how does equity/dividends work? Discuss what my money could really get me.
Great, thanks, Emily. So the way that we look at discounts is we give a larger discount for the higher number of shares that you own. But what you need to remember is we're actually trying to do this to give you an investment in a hotel that has the highest return possible. So, if we open it up and actually get something like 14,000 members, if we're too loose or fluid with the owner discount, it actually will have a negative impact to the overall return. And so our first focus is actually making sure that you can get the highest return possible. There are a few other incentives that we have offered, however, on Cape May, and they include, for instance, if you're one of the top, I can't remember exactly, I think it's the top 20 investors, will be invited to a pre-opening party and get to see the hotel before it's launched to the public. And we're also fortunate enough that the gentlemen that have sold us the Ewing Hotel, Mark and Eddie, they have a lot of information on the history of the site, and we do actually intend to write a book with them. And we will be mentioning anyone that invests over a certain amount of money, basically being part of that book as key investors in one of the first fully hotel crowdfunded developments. Perfect. No other questions? All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, I will try not to take up too much of your evening. I very much appreciate you joining us. And if you have any questions, any further questions, please feel free to reach out at hotelier@hotelierco.com, and we will be sure to answer them as soon as we can. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a great night.